Hello everyone, and welcome to a new weekly market outlook video. Next week is gonna be a massive week for Hydra funding. Black Friday is coming up. Stay close, stay ready. It's the biggest sale of the year, so be prepared because this is gonna be a big one. As for the market outlook, let's start with looking at the economic calendar like always. As you can see here, we have no news on Monday, but the biggest news event of the week will drop on Tuesday. So Monday is the day before a big news event, and there's no news itself, and it's the first day of the week, so I would recommend to not trade on this day because the price is probably gonna be pretty slow and not as volatile as on the other day. So I would recommend to not trade on this day, just preserve your capital and watch for some real opportunities to happen. Then on Wednesday we have unemployment claims at 8:30 AM New York time, also really big news event to watch out for. Volatility definitely entering the market over here, also another nice opportunity. But then Thursday and Friday there's no news, and Thursday is also a USD bank holiday, so what I would recommend is to not trade on this day for sure, because all markets, gold, crypto, and also all forex markets as well as indices are all reliable on the US dollar, so I wouldn't touch any markets on this day. And on Friday, if any opportunity happens, there is a possibility to trade, but I won't do it because for me I would always look for opportunities after high impact news events. So for Friday I would recommend to not trade, but that's all up to you. So if you look on the daily chart for the DXY and the euro dollar, you can see that we have been bullish the previous week, 5 up close candles in a row, traded above this buy side liquidity pool over here for the DXY, where we didn't do it for the euro. So it's interesting to see if this SMT smart money divergence here is gonna hold. If we trade below this low for the euro, below the 1.46 area, I would expect us to trade all the way to here, down to here. But if we don't do it and we keep respecting this daily balanced price range, then I expect us to trade higher, because we have a lot of nice buy side liquidity over here and also over here. And as you look at the GBP US dollar, you can see that we have here equal highs just below a daily bearish fair value gap. And this is for me a sign that there's a lot of buy side liquidity resting here, and I would love to see us trade higher. We've also been respecting the daily BPR over here with the bodies of the candles. It's always really important. I always look at the bodies of the candles. Wicks can pass it for a fair value gap to still be valid. Like if a body of a candle trades through a fair value gap, this fair value gap will change in its function. And what I mean by that, let's have a look at the euro dollar. So a fair value gap acts as support or resistance. A bullish fair value gap always acts as support, where a bearish fair value gap acts as resistance in price. But when we trade through it, this fair value gap turns into an inverse fair value gap, and then it changes in function. As we can see here, for example, you see that we have a fair value gap over here, price trades in it, then trades through it, and then it treats it as a resistance area later on, while it first was support. So this is where support turns into resistance regarding a fair value gap. And you can also see it over here, also a nice example. We see this fair value gap over here, we trade through it, trade back into this inverse fair value gap because now its function has changed. And what do we do after that? We trade lower, aiming for sell side liquidity, for example lows below here, lows below here, lows below here, into this big fair value gap over here. So really important for fair value gaps is that the wicks The wicks are just damaged. The wicks can always trade through fair value gaps, as you see here, but the body tells the story. So if you want to look at the narrative, just look at the bodies regarding fair value gaps, but because they tell you whether a fair value gap is still valid or not. Then let's move over to Bitcoin. When we look at Bitcoin at the weekly chart, over here you can see that last week we are again really bearish. What I discussed last week was that if we trade into this weekly fair value gap and create a buy model over here or some sort of cracking correlation inside this weekly fair value gap, then I would switch my bias to bullish. But if the other scenario, the second one, was if we trade through it with the bodies, so we want to see in 1 day and 15 hours whether we close below or above this weekly fair value gap. But if we trade through it, then also this fair value gap would switch from a fair value gap to an inverse fair value gap, and I want to see this serve as resistance. So if this happens, if we close below it, I want to see this, us to trade back into it, treat this fair value gap, which is now an inverse fair value gap, as resistance, and then trade lower to definitely this area over here, 74k level, but eventually I expect this to trade way lower if we close below this weekly fair value gap. Then let's move over to gold and silver. Gold and silver has been pretty slow past week. We've been trading up and down all week in a pretty close range, but we ended the week with this cracking correlation here at the lows inside the daily fair value gap, with the buy side liquidity equal highs for silver still in place. So gun to my head, what I expect is to happen is to still trade higher for silver, definitely, and I expect gold to follow. So interesting to see what will happen there. As you can see here as well, you see this fair value gap over here in gold. First we treat it as resistance, but then we trade through it, and you see that price now treats the same area as support. So its function is changed from a fair value gap to an inverse fair value gap. Beautiful price action. Thank you all for listening. Please like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I hope to see you in the next one. All good luck next week with trading. Please be aware, all plans for Hydra funding will be 40% off during our Black Friday sale. Go check them out. See you in the next one.